Hey creeps, I'm Taylor and this is TGI Crime Day. Hello and welcome. Today's episode is going to be something a little bit different. I want to start adding in some things that are a little less heavy than my usual content. It also takes a lot of time for me to fully research and write my episodes because I like to get all of the details and all of the ins and outs in the cases I cover. So rather than doing like a 20-minute summary, I like a long video. If you are subscribed to this channel, which I hope you are, then I assume that you are like me and you love a deep dive long episode. But I wanted to add some things like this so that there aren't always big long breaks between videos, and this is something fun that we can all kind of discuss together. So today I have 5 book recommendations for you. Yay, 5. I'm one of those people who reads multiple books at a time. I have like my for fun actual book and audiobook for the car, usually a book for researching a case. I also have a book on my Kindle app that I read while I'm going to bed so that I can read it in the dark. And I like to read a personal growth or something positive type of a book to break up all of the true crime and spooky content. It's a lot, but if you are a book nerd, you get it. So today I have a couple of crime fiction thrillers, a spooky book, a true crime book, and a positivity book for you. Let's talk about books, baby. Oh, also, I will have all of these books linked in the description so that you can screenshot them or come back to it later and remember what it was without having to watch the whole video, okay? Now, let's talk about books, baby. Okay, first up, A Flicker in the Dark by Stacy Willingham. Willingham? Stacy Willingham. This one is a crime fiction kind of a thriller. When Chloe Davis was 12 years old, 6 teenage girls went missing from her small Louisiana hometown. At the end of summer, her father confessed to the murders and was sentenced to life in prison. Chloe had a very hard time comprehending how someone she loved and thought she knew so well could be a monster behind his perfect mask. This led her to a career as a psychologist, and she was able to find some happiness in helping others. The 20th anniversary of her father's arrest was coming up, and suddenly, the happy life that she had built for herself began to crumble around her. Suddenly, a local teen goes missing, and then another. And Chloe finds herself in the middle of a criminal investigation where she sees patterns from her childhood repeating themselves. It seems that anyone around her could be hiding a monster behind their perfectly composed masks. This book has a few different twists, and just when you think you figured it out, you'll change your mind again. Stacy Willingham writes in a beautiful way that immerses you into Chloe's world and keeps you hooked the entire time. I wanted to give you a quick little excerpt from this book so you can kind of hear her writing style because it's gorgeous. Every serial killer has their signature. Like a name scrawled in the corner of a painting or an Easter egg planted into the scenes of a film, artists want their work to be recognized, immortalized, remembered beyond their years. It's not always as grisly as they portray in the movies. Encrypted monikers scratched across the skin, detached body parts showing up around town. Sometimes it's as simple as the cleanliness of a crime scene, or the way in which the bodies are placed on the floor. Stalking patterns strung together by unsuspecting witnesses or ritualistic procedures that occur over and over and over again until eventually a pattern emerges. A pattern that isn't too dissimilar to the way ordinary people go through their routines in a methodical rhythm each morning, as if there were no other way to make a bed, to clean a dish. Human beings are habitual creatures, I've learned, and the act of taking a life can reveal a lot about a person. Each kill is unique, like a fingerprint. But my father left behind no bodies upon which he could leave his mark, no crime scenes to preserve his autograph, no fingerprints to analyze or lift, which left the town wondering, how do you leave a signature without a canvas? The answer is, you can't. The Breaux Bridge Police Department spent the summer of '99 scouring Louisiana for a single clue to his identity. They listened for whispers of evidence that pointed in the direction of one viable suspect, a hidden signature at a crime scene that seemed to not exist. But of course, they found nothing. 6 girls dead, and not a single witness could pinpoint a man lurking near the county pool or a car inching down the street at night, stalking its prey. In the end, I was the one who'd found the answer. A 12-year-old girl playing dress-up with her mother's makeup, rummaging through the back of a closet in search of scarves to tie in her hair. And it was then, holding that little wooden box when I saw it, the thing that nobody else had been able to see. Instead of leaving evidence, my father was taking it. Up next, we have Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult by Michael R. King. So if you watched my most recent episode about the Zion Society cult, I mentioned this book about 500 times. So that was my main source for that episode. I will have that linked in the description as well if you want to take the deep dive into that with me. And this is obviously a non-fiction book. This is a true story of the investigation of the Zion Society cult. In 1991, Detective Mike King launched an investigation and eventual takedown of the Zion Society cult in Ogden, Utah. Years later, he pulled out the case files and wrote this book. This is one of the most awful cults you've probably never heard of, and if you take the dive into this book, you will be shocked that there isn't more media about this case. In a seemingly quiet neighborhood, a cult made up of 70 adults and 30 children started buying all the houses and formed their compound. There were rumors that they were practicing polygamy, stockpiling weapons, and preparing for the end of the world. All of those rumors, and even more horrifying and shocking facts on top of that, turned out to be true. Mike has over 40 years of experience in the law enforcement field. He is a skilled criminal profiler and worked specifically in cult activity. Deceived is a fascinating look into not only the cult and their crimes, but the detective work and what it took to go after the cult and its leader, Arvin Shreve. Mike has a very strong talent for telling stories with compassion and kindness, and he always puts the victim's well-being above any kind of clickbait, shock factor retellings. The author's note in the beginning of the book says, quote, "Some stories are hard to read, let alone write. It doesn't mean they should not be told. This book is one of those stories. This memoir chronicles my investigation into a deviant religious cult of child sex abuse. To ignore, avoid, or pretend such events do not occur is not helpful to victims, potential victims, or society in general. Awareness is the first step to healing and protecting victims and ultimately bringing perpetrators to justice. Extreme details of this case have been left out. All that is important to know is that the events happened." End quote. And exactly like he said, this book is really good because you get all of the details that you need without any of the extremely graphic details that could have been included. So I really appreciate that he wrote it the way that he did. Mike also has a YouTube channel, which is how I had the amazing opportunity to meet him and work with him on a project last year. That channel is called Profiling Evil, and Mike covers current cases, cold cases, and all things true crime and criminal profiling. After you read this book, you can go and watch his videos where he talks more about cults, interviews the survivors, and all the other topics that he covers over there. Highly recommend that you check out his channel. This book is available for free, I believe, on the Kindle Unlimited app, or you can buy the hard copy through Amazon. Up next, we've got All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers, who is the amazing host of Crime Junkie. She is fantastic. This is her debut novel, and it's incredible. Margot Davis was just 6 years old when her best friend, January Jacobs, went missing. Everyone in the town jumped into action to search for the sweet little girl whose story would later become infamous. When January's body was found a few hours later, this launched a decade-long investigation full of accusations and gossip. This event haunted Margot her whole life, and when she was old enough, she ran as far and as fast as she could out of her hometown of Wakarusa. Margot was living in a big city and had made a career for herself as a very successful journalist, living the life she'd always wanted. When Margot's uncle is diagnosed with early onset dementia, she is thrown back into the world from her past. Margot was raised mainly by her aunt and uncle, so she feels it's her duty to take care of her uncle and move back home. While she is getting settled back into life in Wakarusa, another little girl named Natalie goes missing from a nearby town, and all the memories from January's death come rushing back. Using the skills she's learned as a journalist, she starts digging deeper into Natalie's disappearance and begins to string together evidence that connects a handful of disappearances. Nothing is as it seems in Wakarusa, and this book keeps you interested the whole time. I found it really easy to connect with each of the characters, and this is one of those books where there are a few different storylines happening at once, and there are multiple points of view, and it's done in a really easy to understand way. Also, I listened to the audiobook, and I am pretty picky when it comes to audiobook narrations, but I loved the narration done by Ashley Flowers, Brittany Presley, and Carissa Vacker. As I mentioned before, Ashley Flowers is of course the host of the Crime Junkie podcast, and there are some elements in this book that will totally remind you of details from some well-known real-life cases. It's a great one to read or listen to, and really cool to see a crime thriller written by a true crime podcast host. Seriously, goals. The old memory of Jace filled Margot's mind, and suddenly she was 10 again, sitting in an oak tree gazing down at the boy from across the street. She watched as he pressed the toe of his shoe into the chest of a dead bird, pushing harder and harder until its head bulged. Years later in college, Margot had taken a psychology course and had learned the vast arrays of effects grief can have on people. She'd remembered that dead bird then, too, and had thought she'd finally understood Jace's bizarre behavior. After losing his twin sister, he developed a preoccupation with death as an effort to comprehend what had happened to her. But now, Margot wondered if she'd been wrong. Had there been something else? something darker growing inside him. This is another one of those books that keeps you guessing until the very last second because everyone is a suspect. Up next, we've got The Shining by Stephen King. I understand that me recommending this book as like a good horror novel is like asking someone who loves sitcoms if they've ever seen Friends. But here we are. Speaking of Friends, do you remember the episode where Joey reads this book and gets so scared of it that he puts it in the freezer? I can confirm that you'll need to put this book in the freezer once or twice. When Jack Torrance gets a job as the off-season caretaker of the Overlook Hotel, he thinks it will be the perfect time to get away from things for a while and reconnect with his wife Wendy and their 5-year-old son Danny. Little did he know by taking this job, Jack was setting up his family for a living hell. Time isn't what it seems in the Overlook, and ghostly memories live in the walls, doomed to be repeated again and again. There is terror lurking in every hallway, and it seems that the hotel begins to creep in and take possession of Jack. Stephen King is obviously a very immersive, very descriptive writer, so I will give you a little bit of that now. They watched until the car was out of sight, headed down the eastern slope. When it was gone, the three of them looked at each other for a silent, almost frightened moment. They were alone. Aspen leaves whirled and skittered in aimless packs across the lawn that was now neatly mowed and tended for no guest's eyes. There was no one to see the autumn leaves steal across the grass but the three of them. It gave Jack a curious shrinking feeling, as if his life force had dwindled to a mere spark while the hotel and the grounds suddenly doubled in size and became more sinister, dwarfing them with a sullen, inanimate power. That's just the tip of the iceberg with this hotel. So young Danny has a gift for seeing and knowing things that his parents can't explain. The hotel feeds off of his gift and begins to see Danny as a threat to be dealt with. There are, of course, some events and phrases in this book that will totally make you roll your eyes because it was written by a white man in the 70s, but overall it's a really good read. There's a reason that Stephen King is the king of horror, so make sure you have room in your freezer to hide this book when it gets super intense. Can you believe it took me 31 years to get brave enough to read a Stephen King novel? I loved it. And I thought I should start with the one that's like the most well-known, but I want to know what your favorite ones are. What one should I read next? Okay, and then last up, to break up all of your spooky, true crime, terrifying content, this last month I read You're Already Awesome, How to Silence Your Inner Critic and Step into Greatness by Alison Faulkner. I love a good personal growth book, but I get really annoyed with writing that talks down to the reader or reinforces that like toxic positivity. Alison's book doesn't do either of those things. Alison Faulkner is an absolute icon. She is a public speaking, podcasting, hip-thrusting badass, all while dealing with really intense self-doubt, and that is the best kind of person that we can look up to for advice. In her book, Alison doesn't hold back and isn't afraid to talk about the parts of life that absolutely suck, and that's the thing I love the most about this book. She gives tools and tips for how to step into your best self, even while you feel like crap. She gives 12 very specific examples of how you can overcome all of those mental blocks that are holding you back. The front cover of this book says, "You don't have to earn anything. You don't have to hustle harder. You don't have to prove yourself. You are already awesome, so start feeling it." The advice, mantras, and mindset focuses that she shares are all very practical and easy to implement and told to you in a way that will make you laugh and feel like you're just getting advice from your bestie. She also shares moments of her journey that will make you cry because they are very relatable to a lot of people. It was hard for me to choose just one piece of this book because there are so many that I love, but here is one example of why I love this book. In the chapter called "I'm Uniquely Qualified to Live My Life," there's a section that's called "You Are Not a Lazy Loser," which I need to be told 500 times a day. So it says, quote, "When we search for energy, motivation, or confidence outside ourselves, we just end up putting more things on our plate. It's like my 6-year-old Fiona, who has a completely full plate but shouts, mouth full and frantic as her siblings are grabbing seconds, 'I need more too!' We do this with the shoulds and can'ts and I don't wanna but have to's. We pile them heaping on our plates. I should work out. I can't eat sugar. I don't want to go to that dinner, but I have to. I should call my mother-in-law. I can't miss that deadline. I don't want to clean my bathroom, but I have to. I should get myself a nicer car, but I can't afford it. I don't want to take that extra side project, but I have to." The very things we're doing to give us more energy so that we can do more things actually suck us of our energy. And so we add more things. Shoulds, can'ts, and don't wannas will drain you of the very thing you're searching for, energy. You keep adding goals and to-dos to your list, beating yourself into submission to achieve them, or not keeping them and then feeling like a failure, a lazy loser. But remember this, you are uniquely qualified to live your life. We need you to live it and live it well. So let's just get this locked in. You are not a lazy loser. You are overwhelmed. You are exhausted. You probably have a lot of feelings you don't want to feel or can't feel, and they are draining you. You have worries and concerns, and you're beating the crap out of yourself to do better, make your body better, your life better, the world better. Cut yourself some slack. You are freaking awesome. You are the only person on this planet who gets to live your life. How could it be possible that you are not qualified, equipped, good enough, or worthy to live it? It is not possible. It doesn't even make sense. You have the exact skills you need to live your life. You have all the time you need to do the things that need doing. If you feel called to do it, freaking do it. The great thing is that Alison then goes on to share exactly how to pick your focus and to train your brain to see the path of greatness in front of you. I read the hard copy, but I would 10 out of 10 recommend listening to the audiobook and hear Alison tell it in her own voice. I have seen her speak in person, and I do not say this lightly. She is the Lady Gaga of public speaking. All right, my friends, that is it for today. I hope that you liked this little bit of a different episode. Also, this is something that's cool because it's only on YouTube. So the audio-only listeners are missing out on these fun things that are just for us YouTube friends. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, I will have all of these books listed down in the description box so you can find them at a later time. If you've read any of these and you loved them, let's discuss. And then let me know what you are currently reading. All things spooky, true crime related, thrillers, positivity, any of those things and everything in between. I want to know what you're reading. Give me your recommendations, and I will do another one of these once I have a few more books stacked up. Until next time, keep loving all things spooky, keep investigoogling, and I will see you soon.